My name is LaJean Gould, and I am the founder and president of the Women in Golf Foundation. And the organization is a little over 26, 27 years old. Um, our work is that old, I should say. The organization is a little bit younger because we were actually doing the work before we had our organization incorporated. But we're a small nonprofit that likes to do really big things. And our signature event is the National Women's Collegiate Golf Championship that we host every year for historical Black college women's golf teams. And we celebrated 25 years in 2019. And COVID kept us from doing year 26, but we are going to do our very best to do year 26 this April, because we hold the event every year in April. That's our number one leg of what we do. We also have a junior golf program. We committed to growing the golf for women and youth. Our focus is on girls. We don't turn boys away, but our focus is on girls. And our third leg is a program that we do for executive women. We are committed to executive women understanding the benefits that golf can bring to your career, and both for your career and in your personal life, and how to use it and how to network with it and how to use it as a career asset, because that's what our counterparts do. So that's who we are. That's what we do. We have, we do our work predominantly from Atlanta. But we're not limited there. And that's pretty much in a quick version of who we are and what we do.
So can you tell me about the impact that you have had in the sport of golf as a Black woman? I know you just, spoke about the foundation, but just, any personal stories that you may have?
Oh, wow. Yeah. I mean, I actually came out of the corporate world. So I spent 25 years in the communication industry. So I was a corporate executive for a ton of years. And when I retired, my commitment is to grow the game of golf for women. And I got committed to that primarily because I saw what golf did for my career. When I tell my story and I do speeches for kids and women, or when I do classes, I talk about my life before golf and after golf, because just the mere fact that I had learned the game and that I played the game opened up doors that were previously closed.
Mm.
From senior executives in the companies that I work for. So I personally know the benefit that golf brings, and I want women and girls to know that and to learn the game and to realize that it's an asset. It's just not, it's bigger than a sport. And I
Mm.
want them to know that. I also taught golf at Spelman when I first retired.
Mm.
I taught there for about 8 or 9 years. Yeah. And I
Wow.
actually taught, it was a physical education course,
Uh-huh.
but I actually taught it as a business course, because that's the perspective that I wanted them to have, that this was a business tool
Mm.
that young women, coming from Spelman College needed to have in their bag.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I taught it. I taught it for understand it as a networking skill, for understand it as a way to relax, a way to get
Mm-hmm.
exercise, a way to relieve stress, but
Mm-hmm.
most of all as a networking skill.
Mm.
And so, when I look at the impact, I would say, I get calls now from some of my previous students that are still connected to me, and they talk about the benefits of the game. I
Mm-hmm.
got to go play at Augusta National because one of my students called me up and said, this friend of mine has given me the ability to bring somebody with me to play Augusta National.
Mm-hmm.
And would you like to go? And I'm like, would I like to go? Yes. And and I asked her, I said, so why, that one spot was so precious. Why'd you call me? She said,
Mm,
because you taught me to love the game. And
mm,
so that was really special for me to hear. So
mm,
and that tells me that at least somebody in my class heard me in those
mm,
classes that I was teaching. Some of my students heard me. But in terms of impact, oh, we've touched hundreds and hundreds of young women in historical Black colleges that we've been able to host in our events. And when we conduct our events, not only do we offer them competition, but we offer them the opportunity to learn, to some development um, that they don't get in everyday classes, because
mm,
we would expose them to role model people, folks that they wouldn't meet. They, lots of them were able to get in internships. They were
mm,
able to meet mentors and build
mhm,
relationships that have been long-standing relationships with some people. So when we can get their attention, if it's only for a half a day, we try to make an impact and use that wisely. Um, so I think in fact, I know our work has been very impactful. I was actually on a call today,
mhm,
and with a group of women who are calling themselves trailblazers, and they
mhm.
are most of them are professional golfers, or they play college. Actually won my tournament several times. Shasta Averhart
Oh,
is part
yeah.
of that group. So
Wow.
so I kind of see the kids. I see the kids that I've touched out there, all the time. Another young woman who's on that group is Mariah Stackhouse, because Mariah Stackhouse
Wow.
came through our program as a junior golfer. And we've been
Really?
supporting Mariah since she was 8 years old. So so there are
Wow.
kids that, so we've touched the lives out there, and
Yeah.
we're very proud of that. We're very proud of that.
Wow. So, how influential have Black women been historically in the sport of golf?
Black women is, well, pretty much, Althea Gibson
Hmm.
was what, number one professional out there, and then you had Renee Powell, who's out there, and
Hmm.
you've got now, what is it, close to about eight, when you start counting Ginger and Shasta and Mariah and Sedina
Right.
and Cheyenne. So so we're starting to make a difference.
Mm,
I think, probably, my role model that I think doesn't get half the credit for all the work that she's done in the game is Renee Powell. I think Renee
mm,
is just phenomenal. I mean, Renee has just worked really hard very quietly, running a
mm,
golf course, being growing up in the industry.
mhm,
She and her brother doing what they do, her having played professionally.
mhm.
You go to some of these events with Renee. Renee knows everybody. Everybody knows Renee. And
Right,
that's really special. And I'm thankful because she's let us use her name on our trophy. So at our championship event, those girls play for the Renee Powell Cup. So that's kind of special for us.
yeah.
So I think we have had a quite a difference, and I'd like to think that women in golf is going to go down in the history of Black women in golf, because I think what we have done for the championship event for HBCUs
Mm,
is huge. The relationships that we've built with the schools and the coaches and the girls, and the first class event that we try to put on,
mm,
is work that I think is going to be hard to compete with going forward.
mm. So, what impact can you assess that a Black woman can have on on the sport currently and in the LPGA?
In terms of leading it, or in
Right.
terms
In
of
terms of, yeah, leading it in like
you know
the commissioner role.
well, I think it would bring another perspective.
Hmm.
Because when I see that role, I think that it to to take the LPGA where I would like to see it go,
mm,
is going to take somebody with a bigger perspective on what golf can be. And I
mm,
think that has started in a lot of ways. And let me see if I can kind of bring this full circle for you. How, because the question becomes, how do we get more Mariah Stackhouses? How do we get
mm,
more Ginger Howards? How
mm,
do we get more Shastra Averharts?
mm,
And how do we get them funded to be able to be on the tour?
mm,
Now, that should be part of what the LPGA thinks about, but how do you get that to be in the top 5 priorities? I don't know what it's going to take to do that, because you have to figure out how to get that folded into some of the other things. I mean, because the work that Mike has done has taken them very deep into Asia,
mm,
very deep into Australia.
mm,
They've always done some stuff in Europe,
mm,
but the tour itself, the Koreans are very strong. So you
mm,
have a very strong Asian influence just in terms of how the game is played there, how the game is taught there. Well, not so much how it's played, but how it's taught.
mm,
And so those women are taught to win. I mean, they come here to the tour to win. But by the same token, the LPGA has now doing some significant work in terms of the teaching professionals in Asia. I mean, because they actually send, before COVID anyway, they would
mm,
send people there to train. I mean, I think a lot of that work is still happening, but it's being done now through um, technology. But they're
mm.
still they still train it, and I haven't been, but my director of golf is part of the LPGA. What do they call it? She's part of that teaching team. They have a name for it, but
The
it's left us.
LPGA,
Yeah, yeah. I
right?
mean, she's
Okay,
part of. I mean, they have the teaching division, the LTA teachers,
okay.
those teaching professionals. But she is part of the team that teaches the professionals to teach.
Oh wow.
Okay, yeah, she's part of that team,
Yeah.
and maybe like the last 4 or 5 years, she's been going to Korea
Mm.
to teach them how to learn to teach.
Teach, right.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
right.
Um, to teach them to become teaching professional. That's the word I'm looking for. Teach them to
Mm,
become teaching professional. So that all has happened under Mike.
mm-hmm,
And in addition to that, the LPGA girls golf is become very strong under Mike.
mm,
So the new work is to keep that piece of it stronger,
mm-hmm,
and to recruit and develop, not recruit and expose. There's a big difference between recruiting and teaching and developing young girls of color
mm.
to stay with the game. And we've been involved with them in doing some of that work, because I don't know how far you want me to go with this, because
No, no, you have
I
free
can talk
reign.
about this
I,
forever.
I actually wanted to if you could expand what the difference is between the teach and expose and teach and you said expand,
Develop.
develop. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, you can expose. I mean, you can have these big events where you like, play golf, hook a kid on golf, or
Mm-hmm,
you know, uh, a week of this or a week of that, where you expose kids to golf,
mm-hmm,
but that doesn't teach them to be a golfer. That teaches them that here's something else you may want to try to play.
mm-hmm,
The difference. And most programs will tell you, oh, well, we exposed 150 kids to golf this week. And that's all well and good, because when I grew up, I didn't get that exposure, so I didn't even know that you could play golf, but that's been a ton of
Mm,
years ago. So at least those kids are getting exposed. But where are the programs that have the funding to develop?
mm,
Okay. And what do I mean by that? You know, when let me just use Mariah for an example.
mm-hmm,
Mariah was a junior golfer. You know, she her parents were committed, you know,
mm-hmm,
to her maximizing her potential at the game as long as that was what she wanted to do.
mm-hmm,
But it takes funding to do that.
right.
You know, because when you become a good quote unquote junior golfer, then you have got to compete at all levels. When you need to compete at all levels, that means you got to travel and you got to play
Right,
and you got to eat and you got to come back.
right.
So that typical trip can cost a parent, you know, whatever it is
Hundreds
traveling,
of
whether, you know,
thousands.
over time, yes, you
Right,
know,
right.
but because each trip is going to cost you at minimal $800,000-900,000 each trip because you
Mm,
got to get there, you got to eat, and you got to pay entry fees,
right.
you know. So where's the programs that will help families pay for that?
Mm,
You know, because it's not cheap and it's not free,
mm,
you know, and to have the best of equipment that you need to have costs money,
mm-hmm,
and you know you got to dress right as well, that
mm-hmm,
costs money. So that whole program of what it takes to develop a junior golfer is a pretty healthy sum of money. Okay,
mm,
so the government pays for that in career
mm. Wow.
in most cases. Most, you know, I mean, but that's what those countries are. You know, those countries train Olympians, you know, those kind of countries. That, I mean, and that's who they play for. They play for their country.
Right, right, right.
But we don't have that here because of who America is.
Mm,
And you know, when you start to say, how do you bring people who don't look like what the typical golfer looks like into the fold and be able to keep them there,
mm,
it's very difficult.
right.
And if you can get them trained to the degree that they have the skill set to play at that level, do they have the money to stay there until they can make money?
Oh, right,
Okay.
right, right.
So the question becomes, you know, can a person of color bring that level of understanding to the priority list
Mm,
for the LPGA?
mm,
Now, what we've done is worked with the LPGA to get our those kids that compete at our level and meet their playing ability standards to get that those scores to at least get them in the door of the LPGA so that they don't
mm,
have to pay the money to play to pass the playing ability test.
right,
That if they play well in my event, that can account towards their playing ability tests. Now,
right.
the LPGA is starting to have some money available to help those folk be able to pay to be trained to maybe be teaching professionals. That's what I was trying to say.
Mm-hmm,
Because the LPGA teaching professionals, that I mean that's the opposite of being on the tour. You're a golf professional, but your job is not touring, your job is teaching.
right.
So, you know, we can be a feeder pool to that piece of it. And we also could be a feeder pool to some of the to the pro side, but you know, well, you get one every 6 or 7 years.
Mm, wow. A
You
touring,
see,
well, a teaching professional.
no, the
Yeah.
tour. We
Okay,
can
a
get we can
tour.
we can get more teaching professionals, and we're
Okay,
working to do that. But to get them on the tour is a whole nother concept.
Mm,
you know, because you're not going to get a lot of Cheyenne Woods. You're not going to get
mm,
a lot of Mariah Stackhouses. You're not going to get a lot of Ginger Howards yet.
right.
But it's going to take a whole nother perspective in terms of how do you produce them, because you know, in terms of basketball players, you know, you can go out on a parking lot with a hoop and
Yeah.
get good at it,
Or a milk crate.
and get
And
good at it,
right, right,
and get really good. But you
right.
can't, and you know, even with soccer, you know, you
Mm,
just need a ball and a field.
right.
But that's not the case with golf. You need so much more.
Hmm.
And, you know, that's that, you know, and it's probably time to get some of those issues higher on the priority list for the LPGA,
Hmm.
because they have been successful with some of their other priorities. That's why I say diversity and inclusion needs to be high on the LPGA priority list.
Mm,
You follow me?
right.
And maybe a person of color could help get that higher on the list quicker
Hmm. Because
than
they'll
you
be
would.
able to offer the insight
Right.
from.
And they and I say you need somebody with management skills and marketing skills, because you got to be able to sell that to sponsors to get money.
Mm, right, right, right.
You know, because what we say to the LPGA is your marketing needs to look different, because it's difficult for me to convince a little black girl that she should play golf when there ain't nothing that she looks at out there that's got any black women in it.
Mm, right, right.
You Am I making sense?
No, no, because it's essentially representation matters. Just
Exactly.
like how yesterday, even Kamala Harris being sworn in, now girls, they see her and they see them.
Exactly.
Right,
Exactly.
right, right,
Exactly. Exactly.
right.
Exactly.
So, what impact can you assess that a black woman can have on the sport currently and in the LPGA?
I mean, you know, how do you convince your sponsors to want to make the organization look like America or
Mm,
look like the world?
mm-hmm,
You know,
mm,
um, is I think what the question is,
mm,
and the I think we have to you know, this it's hard to talk about this in a surface perspective.
it's
You,
multifaceted.
it's almost like you have to get the LPGA to maybe understand, why do I even want to look different?
Mm, okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Why is that important for them to want to look different? And I think it's important for them to want to look different if they want to grow,
Mm,
if they want to get their organization to the degree where when you play, your tickets sell out,
mm,
because there's a whole nother group of people now who want to come see somebody else play,
right.
you
Right.
know, and you have to make that just doesn't happen automatically. I mean, Tiger Woods was made,
Mm-hmm,
Justin Thomas was made,
mm-hmm,
you know, they grew up with, you know, Justin Thomas grew up because his dad and his granddad, those folks were all pros. Nancy, what's her face? Nancy Lopez was made. You know,
mm-hmm.
those, you know, so you've had the Hispanics who put the time in and put some folk out there on the tour who was successful, and and they won, and they brought in money for the organization.
how would a Black woman LPGA commissioner be able to shift the statistics in terms of the lack of diversity in executive positions?
I said again,
So
how would they do it now?
how would a Black woman LPGA commissioner be able to shift the statistics in terms of the lack of diversity in executive positions?
Whew. Well, the organization is not that large in terms of numbers of people.
Okay.
It's, I mean, in terms of the headquarters group is not huge.
Mm,
Um, so in terms of if you had an African American person leading the organization, like at the Mike One level, that would be huge in terms of visibility, in terms of representation.
mhm,
Um, because I want to say structurally, there's a woman who runs a foundation and runs the teaching professional group, and there may be somebody else that does a tour,
mhm,
but then the majority of the other staff are like the program managers and you know people like that.
mhm,
So at the executive level, there's not like there's a whole lot of people.
mhm,
You know, um, I don't know. I know more about the teaching professional side than I do the tour side.
okay.
Because I do know there are a couple of tours, and I actually, I mean, there's somebody who runs the Symetra tour, and who runs a regular LPGA tour,
Mhm,
and I think those folks probably report in the mic.
mhm,
Now, the thing about golf is, you got your management structure, but the people who actually make tournaments happen are volunteers.
right, right.
So, I mean, that's on both sides. They bring in thousands of volunteers to make tournaments happen.
Mhm,
But, they've all mastered, all the tours have mastered how to manage those volunteers and how to get them to make that work happen
mhm,
seamlessly. And and that's fun. That's actually fun to watch. But I think that to make it look different, you've got to do, you've got to get some work done around developing pl- the potential players at the highest of levels. So there's got to be more work done in junior programs. Oh, this is what I started to tell you, and I kind of dropped off. Is we've done some work with them because we had some conversations that said in our junior programs,
mhm,
where do we have the most problems with stability or with retaining
mhm,
these kids? Basically what happens is you tend to you I mean, when a kid is 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, they don't have any problem with doing camps and programs and playing and walking and carrying their bags and doing all that.
mhm,
But when they hit their teens, we tend to lose them.
mhm,
And so we were doing some work with them pre-COVID on how to retain these kids when they 13 and over. And so we had a couple of they in fact they would do 4 or 5 per summer, um, actually sessions where they would do 2 3 day sessions with kids. I want to say the ages were 13 to 17, 13 or 18, that were supposed to be and were actually motivational, that were some additional golf training,
mhm,
but mostly confidence building sessions that were helping them to realize who they were, the power within themselves, the ability to set goals and accomplish them and be their own person.
mhm,
And we actually hosted one of those. The Women in Golf Foundation actually hosted one of those sessions here in Atlanta, and those sessions are pretty powerful.
Mm.
But, the key with those even, in terms of us offering to host one was you can't do 6 of those all summer long and you got 20 plus kids in each one, and you don't have a good number representation of people of color.
Um, right, right, right.
So so that's so you got to get back to that. How do you get them included? How do you make it a primary objective in their programs to ensure that you get people of color in those programs, and that you work to maintain them and get them developed? Now, you did ask me before, and I don't know that I ever answered you, what was the difference between exposure and developing? And I
Mm.
think I told you what I thought exposure meant, but I didn't talk about developing. Developing means you have to be able to reach a point where if that kid is a good golfer, then it becomes such that group lessons are not what that kid needs anymore. That kid now needs
Mm.
private lessons. They
Mm.
need to go specifically to an LPGA teaching professional
Mm.
that that's that's trained to be able to teach that kid to take their game to the next level.
Mm.
And that costs money. So we kind of hit on this, but that's when it comes to, like in my program, it's like, so when do we weed out that kid that needs special development because there's special talent there now?
Mm.
Okay. And then the second piece of it is, how do we what do we do, and we have a program for doing this, is what do we do to get that kid mentally, physically ready to play collegiate golf?
Mm.
Because to just leave a junior program now and take on playing collegiate golf, there's a whole another level of knowledge and responsibility and team relationships and all that that
Mm.
has to be taught to that kid. So we started having college prep camps in the summer where we'd bring in those advanced kids and we would teach them about course management. We would teach them about relationships on teams. We would
Mm.
teach them about time management in terms of what you got to do to be able to manage your school and manage time to be where you need to be in practice. Because I talk to coaches all the time, and coaches are saying, my kids don't want practice. My kids don't want to go to practice. It's like, golf is paying your way to school. What do you mean you don't want to go to work?
Mm.
So I have to get them to think that you have to play this game like it's work. Because if they want to become professionals, it will be work.
Mm. Wow.
Okay. So
Right.
that's what I mean by, you got lots of programs out there that are exposing, but
Uh-huh.
how many programs do you see that are actually developing?
Right. 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 Wow. Wow. That's definitely true. Definitely
Yeah.
true.
And that's what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
so for our communities, we have to have more of that. I mean,
Uh-huh.
because these let's just say the typical female player that doesn't look like us
Mm-hmm.
is in a very familiar setting, because 9 times out of 10 there's a country club environment that her parents belong to.
Right.
When they move out of that junior group camp, the pro there takes that kid over.
Right.
And that pro that's there in this country club is now this mentor, this person that this kid goes to. So that person's now getting specific training, is getting mental training on how to think about the game, how to practice, all of that you don't get in these group settings.
Mm.
We don't have those.
Right. 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 And it sticks more when children are able to see themselves in the people who are teaching them. Right.
Yeah, yeah,
Right. Right.
yeah. So
So, so how would you think the LPGA would welcome a black woman as a commissioner?
uh I think it could be done, because I
Mm-hmm.
think it has to be done based on skill set.
Mm-hmm.
If you bring in the right set of skills, and that's what you sell to them, then they wouldn't be too smart to not want that if they believe in the organization and want to see the organization grow. You
Right.
know, and it's all about skill set. I mean, I don't think they were happy to see Mike Whan come in there, but they all
Mm,
love Mike Whan now.
mm,
They love him.
mm,
So I just think it's about skill set and it's about accomplishments.
right.
You know, because as much as I believe and want to see Black women do a whole bunch of stuff,
Mm,
I used to always hate when people would think that I got something because I was a Black woman.
mm,
You know, I wanted to
mm.
get it because I was the best person for the job. And
Merit.
that's why I'm saying, oh, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. Because most of the time, if you're in the pot to be chosen, you're gonna be the best because you've been trained to be the best. You've had to work
Mm,
harder most of the time.
mm-hmm,
You know, so it wasn't, I don't ever think I got something that I didn't deserve, but
mm,
I wanted it to be because I did deserve it.
right. Right. Right.
And that's why I'm saying it's important for me, if I were to put a name out there, I would want it to sincerely be somebody that the LPGA would consider and that that person could take the LPGA to the next level.
Mm,
That's what's important to me.
right.
Now, I'd be willing to go start helping search for that person.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I'd be trying to see, ask myself, could I do it if I was 30 years younger?
Mm.
You know, but I don't want to work that hard anymore. I did. I paid my dues. I don't want to work that hard. And I don't have the global connections. You know, I don't. That's what I don't know. I don't know people right now that have the global connections. You know, because when I was in the corporate world, you know, I actually ran the international the a part of the business that had an inclusive piece that was international that included Mexico, Canada, and Europe. I never
Mm,
had the Asian piece, but I had friends who did. I had another
mm,
friend who at one point was president of UPS Foundation, and
mm,
she's retired now. You know, 20 years earlier, I would say she's your woman because she
mm,
had those management skills, those international skills, and she loves the game.
mm,
So, you know, so I don't, I've been out of that corporate world so long, I don't know that 30-ish, 40-ish group of women out there
mm,
because you know, they came after I left. But what I do know is that they are out there.
right.
They are out there. You know, because believe it, oh, back to this group that I told you about, Win with Black Women.
Right.
Now, there were two women who came on the meeting one evening, and they were not on the and most of the stuff that happens in these meetings, they they don't come representing their companies. They come and represent themselves and
Mm,
what they think and what they believe and what they are willing to do within their companies to help make things happen.
mm.
So it
Like
is
they're
a
bringing their brand
their
instead of.
personal brand to the call. So they're not bringing the Microsoft brand or the Apple brand or the
Mm-hmm,
Twitter brand or whoever brand.
mm-hmm,
They like if I when I'm on those calls, I am not Women in Golf. I am LaJean Gould.
mm,
Okay.
right.
So, but there were people on there who had been in the room when decisions were made to make some decisions that if you weren't recording me, I would tell you about. But
Mm,
they were the decisions that really rocked the country.
mm,
And they are diversity and inclusion people that were in those rooms.
mm-hmm,
But when they came to tell us about it, they were not telling us about it as their corporate representatives. They were representing diversity and inclusion and the
right.
difference that Black women are making.
Right. Right. Right.
Okay. Do
Yeah.
you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. It's
So,
it's a
so, so,
different it's a different like kind of talk. Like that's
right,
that's what yeah
right.
Yeah.
It's a real talk. It's let me tell you, this happened because I was in the room. I can't own the decision, but I can tell you I influenced the decision.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And this decision sets the path 20, 30 years down the line.
Oh, absolutely. It's going to impact down the line forever. It impacted right then.
Mm,
Yeah. I mean, you got people on all I'm saying is if they want if the bird wants to have somebody that deserves to be in that list, I can go find her somebody. I just what I don't know right now is if the LPGA is open to that.
mm,
I mean, I don't know who their search committee is. I don't know who, if I can find that out.
mm,
But I just don't know what they have set as the criteria that they're looking for to fill that role. But if we want to have some influence, there's a way to do that
mm. Right,
because the skill set is out there,
right.
and it's probably, and if it's golf related, if it's a golf related person, I don't know that I personally know the person, but
The
that person
network.
could be located. Yeah. The network will put that person to the top. Now, the
Mm,
other thing is these women were connected to the Biden transition team,
mm,
and they would ask every night, do you know somebody that needs to be on a committee? Do you know somebody that wants to be appointed? Do you know
right.
somebody that we should be pushing for the cabinet?
Wow.
So that's how this stuff happens.
Wow. Right. And it's more like, yeah, I have a recommendation.
Yeah. And here's where to send it. Here's what it needs to look like. Here's what they're looking for. Here's how you need to dress up the whatever.
Hmm. Right.
I mean, I was on a call when they were saying, here's what we got to do to get behind Marcia Fudge. Here's the petition that needs to get signed. Here's the this that needs to get sent to the Biden team. That's what these women do.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
Yeah, that's what they do.
Yeah.
But like
So,
I said, it's a
uh,
collective. So when you're on that call, it can't be recorded. You
hmm,
can't come out of there calling nobody's names and stuff. It's stuff that happens. And it's stuff
mm,
that you can participate in and help make happen.
mm.
I want to say the group raised over $150,000 for Ossoff and Warnock combined.
Wow. And are you on any social media channels?
Yeah, I'm on Facebook. I'm
Okay.
on Twitter
Hmm.
and Instagram.
Okay.
That
What's the plan? What would be like the list, things like that?
well, I mean, more so, do we know who the search firm is? Do we know what they're looking
Mm,
for? Are they
okay.
open for suggestions or nominations or recommendations? You
Okay.
know,
Right.
I think that, I mean, because to do that, to do the work
Uh-huh.
and not have somebody even consider who you're going to put out there seems fruitless to me.
Mm,
Because I don't know if that team has been shut down or not. I mean, the last time I asked somebody about when Mike Whan was planning to leave,
hmm,
it's my understanding that Mike has said he will be there and help them replace him and get
mm,
that person transitioned in.
mm,
So, I don't know who that is, or I don't know what they're how they're planning to fill the position, what they're doing to fill it, how they're doing their search, you
hmm,
know, are they even willing to consider whatever? I don't know. But I would think those are good questions that somebody close to the
LPGA.
should be asking.
Right. Right.
You know, because I want to be in a position where
Mm.
when I make a recommendation to the LPGA, they see it as being valid and they pay attention to it.
Mm.
I don't want to throw something out there and they go, LaJean lost her mind.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Uh-huh. Right.
Just because I need to have credibility with them that says if they get a phone call from me, they return my phone call.
Right. Right.
That's important to me. Um, and that I don't take what I ask them to do for me or the community lightly. That if I
Mm.
ask for something, I'm very serious about what it is I ask for, and I try to ask for it in a way that matters. I mean, when I say I'm going to do this and I need you to fund it, and this is what your money is going to fund, I need that to be my word.
Mm.
So if 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 you ask me who should take that job and I say, "Oh, Mary Jo over here, she's a black woman, she should do it." Then I need Mary Jo to be super duper at what she does and what she brings to the table, and that Mike Whan could move out and Mary Jo step in.
Mm. Mhm.
And that's how I want them to see what I would put on the table. So that's why I didn't have somebody off the top of my head,
Mhm.
because it needs to be somebody that I truly believe has the skill set, has the knowledge, has a network, has the academia, and the ability to lead a team like that and grow it.
Right. And it's not necessarily someone in golf. It's someone who
It doesn't
understands
have, right.
business.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly, because that's what it is.
Right.